Okay, this lesson is on an introduction to circles. In the last lesson, we learned about completing the square, and that is going to become useful when we are putting our circle equations into standard form. So, but that's for a little bit later in this lesson. But we're going to introduce circles. You're going to find that this is circles are fairly easy, and they're really isn't much to them. There is a formula for circles, and there is a standard form to circles. So we'll get right into that. And then you're going to have to be able to write your equation into standard form for circles as well as graph circles. And again, we'll get to that. So the standard form for a circle, let me make sure I got everything here, okay, is parenthesis x minus h squared y minus k squared equals r squared. So a lot of variables in here, but what they mean, x and y is obviously the same x and y we've always dealt with, and you could probably figure out what r deals with considering what we have over here. But circles are really easy shapes. Really all you need is a center and then a radius, because once you have the center, the radius is constant around the circle, and you can draw the radius out and do a circle. So really, all you need again is a center and a radius. Well, it turns out that the center is whatever your h and k is as a coordinate. So we write it as h comma k. So whatever your h is and your k is, that is the coordinate of your center. And your radius is obviously r. So let's look at a few examples here where they give us the center and they give us the radius, and all we're going to do is just plug it into our sort of form here. So the first one, and let's leave that there at the top. The first one here gives us a radius of 3, and the center is -1, 5. It's important to note that in these formulas there are minus signs that are already here. So if you put in something that is negative into something here that already has a minus sign, it's going to change to a positive. So if this refers to our h, and this refers to our k, and this refers to our radius, all we're going to do is just plug them in. Okay. So I have parenthesis x. Now it's a -1, and my minus sign's already there, so it's going to be +1 squared plus parenthesis y minus my k, which is 5, squared equals my radius squared. So since my radius is 3, 3 squared is 9. And that's it. That's how you, given the radius to center, that's how you put it in the form. That's it. So the next one, we have a center at 2, -3, and a radius of 7. So x minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared, and that equals my radius squared, which 7 squared is 49. That's it. Now we're going to work our way backwards now. We're going to have to find, now given the graph, let's find what the center is and the radius is, and then write the equation. So you can clearly see the center in this particular problem is right there. Okay, and the radius, just travel along one of the lines here, is 1, 2. Our radius is 2. So my center is at the coordinate 1, 2, 1, 2. So 1, 2, and my radius is 2. So now I do the exact same thing I did there and plug it in. So x minus 1 squared plus y minus 2, so we're going to fit it in here, squared equals my radius squared, which is 2, so 2 squared is 4. And that would be the answer to that circle. That would be the equation of that circle. Looking at this problem here, again, we can clearly see that our center is right there. The coordinate is 2, -1. And our radius, and you can go in any direction here, 1, 2, 3, is 3. So plugging it into our formula, x minus my x squared plus y minus my y, since it's already negative, it would be positive 1 squared equals my radius squared. Since my radius is 3, it'll be 9. And that's it. Okay. So we've gone from them giving us the radius in the center to getting the formula, now to giving us the graph and us finding the equation. Now we're going to turn it around. Now they're going to be given the equation, and we actually have to find the graph. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is find your center and find your radius. Okay. So you can see the center right there. Now what happens here? So you just have y squared. There's no number with the y. What could you assume would be your y value if there is no number with the y? If you guessed 0, then you are correct. What it means here is that the y value was 0, so it was just y squared instead of x minus 2 squared. If this were a 0, it would just be x squared. So what that means is your y value is actually 0. So when we do our coordinates, be careful here. Remember, the minus sign was always here, so it's always going to be the opposite of what this is. So your x coordinate is actually positive 2 and 0. The reason is because in the formula the minus sign was already there. So that means a positive 2 is placed in. Because if I had placed a negative 2 in with the minus sign already there, this would have been positive. So it's always the opposite of this sign. So 2, 0 is your center. And so we can plot that at 2, 0. It's right there. And our radius, remember that this value was r squared. So to actually find your radius given the equation, you actually have to take the square root of this, because it was r squared that got it to be 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. That means the radius is 2. So our radius is 2. We can go in 2 in all directions. So 2 that way, 2 this way, 2 down, 2 left, and now we have a circle. There you go. That's it. Now let's look at number 6. Okay, same thing here. Do this one in blue. Here's your center, your H and K. This is, remember, it's always the opposite of what's there. So that's actually negative 2, positive 3 is my center. And then my radius is the square root of that number, which is 4. So I'm going to put the center at negative 2, 3 up here, and do a radius of 4. So 4 that way, 4 this way, 4 down, 4 left, and now I just draw my circle. And that's it. Go ahead, pause the video, and try number 7 on your own, and hit play when you want to see the answer. Okay, there's your answer. Radius, the center was at negative 1, negative 4, and the radius was 3. That's it for that page. Going on to the next page. The last page here, is now going to, so what happens if they give us the equation of the circle and it's not in the form that we need? How do you find the center and the radius when the equation is given to you all jumbled up like this? I don't know what x is. There's no parentheses. There's no squared in parentheses. I don't even know what the square root of 11 is. So we got a mess here in these problems. So this is where it's going to take your skills in completing the square to figure out what these equations are going to be. So let's start by looking at the steps. Step 1. In order to organize this into the correct form, what we call standard form, we need to get our variables near each other so that the x's are next to each other, the y's are next to each other, and then the constant, or the number that's by itself, is on the right side. And if you look at our equation, it's already like that. We have our x's next to each other, our y's next to each other, and the constant 11 is on the right side. So now, step 2. We're going to complete the square for each variable. So, how this looks, we'll zoom in here. How this looks is you're going to take this part here, I'll do these in different colors, and you're going to treat them as sort of separate completing the square problems. So this right here is going to be x squared minus 2x plus some number. That's the whole completing the square part. And this one is going to be y squared plus 4y plus some number equals 11. So we're going to complete the square for both of these problems. What number would go in the red with the x's? Well, remember how to complete the square. You take half of your b and square it. So half of negative 2 is negative 1, and then I square it. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. So my number here is 1. Now remember what we did with completing the square. With equations, you cannot do something to one side of the equation without doing the same thing to the other. So since we added 1 to the left side, I do need to add 1 to the right side. Now we're going to do the same thing for the blue. Again, it's half of your b squared. Half of my b is 2. 2 squared is 4. So this number is plus 4. And again, I do the same thing to the other side. Now, I can bring these down to their factored form. Okay, x minus 1, think about it, what multiplies to be 1 and adds, multiplies to be 1 and adds to be negative 2? Well, it's negative 1 and negative 1. That whole purpose of that was to do this. It's x minus 1 squared. There's a plus in here. Plus, and we'll do the same thing to the right side, to the y's. What multiplies to be 4 and adds to be 4 is 2 and 2. So it ends up being y plus 2 squared. And on the other side, 11 plus 1 plus 4 is 16. Now, little trick here. Remember this number? How did you get it? Remember we took half of your b? Half of your b was negative 1. Look at how it matches. So whenever you're doing this, it's real easy to remember because whatever half of your b is, it's the same as your factored number here. Half of my b here is 2, and look, it's 2 here. So it might be easy just to do what is half of your b and then put it right into this form here. And that's it. So now it's in standard form, and now we can actually find the center and the radius. So let's do that now. Center. The center is right here and right here. So remember it's opposite signs, so it's actually 1, negative 2. And the radius, remember that radius was squared, so to actually find the actual radius you need to square root it. Square root of 16 is 4. And we could actually then graph this if we wanted to, now that we know the center and the radius. That's that. So, now let's try one a little more difficult. Okay. here in this problem here, we got everything jumbled up. A couple things we need to take note of here. We want our x's, okay, to be near each other, and I don't like using black. It's hard to see. Okay, x's need to be next to each other. The y's need to be next to each other. And the constant here is on the wrong side. So we do need to move these together. We do need to move these together. And this does need to go to this side. So I'm going to put my x's together. Since they're on the same side, there's not much I need to do other than just move them next to each other. So I'll have x squared plus 6x. Then I'll have plus y squared minus 14y. The negative 42 is actually going to move to the other side. So it's going to be equals positive 42. And so now I have everything in the right place. Now I can now take this part here and complete the square, and take this part and complete the square. So I have x squared plus 6x plus something, and then I have y squared minus 14y plus something equals 42. So we're going to complete the square. Half of my b is 3, and I square it, which is 9. Remember, half of my b is 3, so I know this is going to be x plus 3 squared. Half of my b in the y's, okay, half of my b here is negative 7. Negative 7 squared. Negative 7 times negative 7 is positive 49. Remember that my number was, half of my b was negative 7. So this is going to be y minus 7 squared. Now we do have to remember everything that we do to the left side, we do have to do to the right side as well. So I'm going to slide over here. I do have to add the 9 that I added to the left side, and I do have to add the 49. Okay, this is a very, very common mistake. People forget all the time to also add the numbers to the right hand side. So now what I have on the right hand side is 42 plus 9 plus 49, which is 100. So now at this point, this is the home stretch here, we should be able to find our center. Okay, our center is right here and here, so that's actually negative 3 and positive 7. And then our radius is, and holy cow, I put 1,000, just realized that's not 1,000, that's 100. And the square root of 100 is 10, so my radius is 10, and that would be the answer. So that's circles. I highly recommend, there is a practice that is in Canvas for you to do. If you're watching this on an e-learning day, you have to do the practice and submit it through Canvas. If you're doing this on Thursday with the sub, you are more than welcome to work together, but I highly recommend that you at least do some of the practice. It's not hard, and it shouldn't take very long, but when I come back, or when I see you next time, you will have an outcome quiz on circles, okay, and that is out